Hello everybody, Tommy here, and welcome back to my SQL tutorial series. So in this video I'll continue to cover a lot of the most common and useful commands in SQL, as well as how to apply them. So with all that being said, let's get right into it. So where we left off in the last tutorial was returning all the rows from the customers table, then ordering by the contact's first name and the contact's last name. So what we're going to do next is add a row to the table by using the insert into command, which works like this. We're taking the words insert into and the name of the table that we're inserting values into, which in this case is customers, and then in parentheses the names of the columns that we're inserting values into. So for example, in this one we'll do customer number and customer name, and then we'll type in the word values and then in parentheses the values that we're going to add. So for example, as a number we can do 1, 2, 3, and as a customer name we can do my name Tommy. Now when you run this, however, you'll notice it says in error code 1364 field contact last name doesn't have a default value. Basically, if a column doesn't have a default value, it means that we have to specify a value that we're going to put for it when we add a new entry into the table, or else it'll return an error message, as you can see here. So although I'm not going to cover default values now, I will in a later tutorial. So if you stick around, then you'll find out all about that. What I'll do next is show you null values in SQL. Basically, null values are entries left completely blank. So for example, let's say we want to select from the customers table. However, we only want to return rows where the second address line is null. So what we can do is say where address line 2 is null. And then when we run this, you'll notice it'll only return rows with a null address line 2. Now let's say we only wanted to return rows that do have an address line 2. What we can do is instead of null, just use not null. And just like that, when we run the code, it'll only return rows that do have a second address line. The next thing I'll show you is the limit command. Basically what it does is limits the amount of rows returned to a certain number. So for example, let's just say we want to return only the first 3 rows from the customers table. All we have to do after typing in select from customers is the word limit and then the amount of rows that we're returning. So in this case, let's do 3. And then when we run the code, you'll notice it'll only return the first 3 rows of the table. Something else you can do with tables in SQL is find the minimum value, maximum value, average of values, or even sum of all the values of a column in an SQL table. So for example, let's say we wanted to find all those regarding the column customer number. So first, we'll do the minimum. So we type in MIN and then in parentheses the column name. In this case, it's customer number. Then we also want to find the max, so for that we'll just do MAX, and then the name of the column again. And then average, we just do AVG, and then the name of the column once again. And then for the sum, we'll just do SUM, and then the name of the column. And then we'll just do from the name of the table, which in this case is customers. And when we run it, you'll notice it'll return the minimum, maximum, average, and sum. Another useful command in SQL is the as command. Basically what it does is renames a column so that it's easier to understand. So for example, we can just rename min customer number to minimum. So to do that, we type in as and then minimum, there we go. And then when we run it, you'll notice it'll show up as minimum instead of min customer number. Next, I'll show you the like operator in SQL. Basically, the like operator is used to search for a certain pattern. So basically with the like operator, an underscore represents a single character and a percentage sign represents any amount of characters. So for example, let's say we wanted to do select from customers where the contact first name begins with J. So what we can do is say, well, the name of the column, contact first name. And then after the name of the column is where we would put the word like, and then in single quotes, J, and then the percentage sign. And then when you run it, you'll notice all the rows will have a contact first name beginning with J. To show another example, let's say for some reason you wanted to only return rows which have a state that has C as the second letter. What we can do instead of contact first name. We'll just change that to state. And then basically we'll have an underscore, basically meaning the first character can be anything, and then C, and then percentage sign. So then when we run it, you'll notice the only two rows returned are states with C as the second letter. Next I'll show you the between command. Just like it sounds, it only returns rows with values between certain numbers. So for example, let's say we only wanted to return rows from the customers table that have a customer number between 120 and 140. So we can do is say we're customer number, the name of the column, then the word between, and then just the two values that we want it to be between. So we can do 120 and 140. And when we run this code, you'll notice the customer number will always be between 120 and 140. On the other hand, let's say you wanted it to not be between a certain range, all you would have to do is put not between. Then you'll notice the rows will have values for the customer number not between 120 and 140. Now with strings of characters, between works slightly differently. Basically the only difference is that you have to put single quotes around the strings of characters, and basically between would mean that you want values returned to be between the two values specified alphabetically. So for example, let's say we wanted the contact first name to be between the letter A and the letter C. You'll notice that it'll only return rows with the contact first name alphabetically between the single letter A and the single letter C. Next I'll teach you about the join command. Basically joins are used to return rows based on whether or not there are matches between two tables. The four types of joins are inner, left, right, and outer. Unfortunately, outer join does not work in MySQL, but I'll leave a link down below in the description so you can find out more about that. Now, a common way to visualize what the different types of joins do is with a Venn diagram. Basically, you'll specify one column from each of the tables that you're dealing with, and then inner join will only return records where there are matches in both columns, while for left join, in addition to this, it'll also return all of the entries in the left column or the first column, whether there is a match in the right column or not. For the right join, it's pretty similar. Basically, in addition to the entries where there are matches in both columns, it'll also return all of the entries in the right column, whether there's a match in the left column or not. Basically, the outer join puts it all together and returns all the records that have a match in either of the columns. So to show an example here, basically I selected everything from the customers table and from an additional table called payments. You'll notice that both tables have a customer number column. So what we're going to do is first specify the columns that we will return as always. But when we're dealing with multiple tables, we have to put the name of the table first. So let's say we're going to return the customer column of the payments table. So basically this will work by doing the table name, which is payments, dot, and then the column name, which is customer number. And then we'll also select the customer name from the customers table. So we'll just do customers dot customer name. And then we'll say from the left table, which in this case is customers. And then we'll say the type of join we're doing and the other table. So for this example, I'll do inner join. So inner join payments. And then next we'll type in on, and then we'll type in the names of the two columns that'll determine what rows are returned based on whether or not there are matches in those two columns. So for this example, I'll do the customer number from each of the tables. So we will do customers dot customer number, then equals, and then the other column, which is just payments dot customer number. And then when you run this, you might notice it'll only return rows in the customer number column that have a match in both the customer's customer number and the payments customer number, as well as the corresponding customer name for each number. Now with the other types of joins, we basically do the same exact thing besides the word we put right before joins. So instead of inner, for example, we can do left. Now in addition to the types of joins that I already mentioned, there's also something called a self join, where basically you join a table with itself. This can be used to find matches between certain rows of a certain column and return corresponding values of another column. So for example, I'll start by querying the customers table. So select from customers, of course. And let's say we wanted to match all the people up with everybody else that lives in the same city as them. So what we can do is first specify the names of the columns that we want to return. So after select, we can put a dot contact first name and b dot contact first name. Basically, A and B are just gonna be the aliases for the customers table. Since we're matching up people based on what city they live in, we'll also return a column for city. So we could just do a.city like that. So after we specify the column names, we'll just do from as always, and then we'll put the original name of the table and then the alias like that. So we'll do that with both of them. Let's say we wanted to return each distinct pair of people that live in the same city as each other. So what we can do is say where each of the customer numbers aren't the same, so that it's not that you're not gonna have one person with themselves. So by that I mean we can do where customer number a dot customer number is not equal to, which looks like that, and then b dot customer number. And since we want to do, and since we're doing it to pair up people that live in the same city as each other, we'll do we'll do a dot city and b dot city. So we'll just set them equal to each other. And to keep this organized, we can just order it by the city. So we can do order by city just like that. End it off with a semicolon, and when you run it, you'll notice it'll return each pair of people that live in the same city as each other. Now if you've made it this far into the tutorial series, thank you so much for watching, and props to you for sticking with it. In my next tutorial, I will cover almost all of the fundamental commands you need to know that I haven't already covered. Then I will go over some very helpful resources that you can use to furthermore improve your SQL skills. After that, my SQL tutorial series will be complete, and I will be moving on to teaching C++. Also, make sure to fill out the SurveyMonkey survey, which is down below in the description. But besides that, that's about it. So thank you so much for watching, and see you all next time.